Hello and welcome to ADHD Support Talk Radio. My name is Tara McGillicuddy, and I am the host of ADHD Support Talk Radio. I am also an Adult ADD and ADHD productivity coach and the founder and director of ADDclasses.com. And at ADDclasses.com, we provide virtual support and education to people affected by ADD and ADHD. We offer free teleseminars. We have an extensive ADD audio library with more than 150 courses, and we also offer more in-depth support programs. And you can learn more about ADDclasses.com by going to the website www.ADDclasses.com. And with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Hallowell to ADHD Support Talk Radio. I'm so glad you've joined us today.
Oh, it's really nice to be with you, Tara. You're a wonderful veteran of the world of ADD.
Well, thank you. In just a moment, you and I are going to be having a discussion about distraction and ADD and ADHD. But before we get into the discussion, can you let our listeners know just a bit about yourself for those who may not be familiar with you? I'm sure most of my listeners are. And also how they get in touch with you after they've listened to today's show.
Sure. I'm another veteran of the world of ADHD. I'm a psychiatrist.
Yep.
And a writer. I've written a number of books. Probably the best known are Driven to Distraction and Delivered from Distraction. I have ADD myself, and I'm 66 years old, so I've been living with it for a long time and seeing people of all ages in my offices in just outside of Boston and in New York City. We also have an affiliate branch in Seattle and San Francisco. My website is drhallowell.com, just dr with no period, hallowell.com, and there's a wealth of free information on that site, video clips and short little talks. It's a fun place to explore. And I've also just launched a podcast with the help of a marvelous company called CRN in Connecticut and their owner, Barry Berman. And the name of the podcast is Distraction. And if you'd like to sign up for that, you can do it on the website, which is distractionpodcast.com, or on iTunes. And again, the name of the podcast is simply Distraction. And in the podcast, we discuss the age of distraction, the age we're living in, and really emphasize solutions. And the big solution to distraction is connection, human connection, not electronic connection. But the marvelous world of connection, which I love to talk about and explore, we do through interviews in a little coffee house, through guest experts, and we have little mini vignettes where I talk about your daily dose of vitamin C, which is Vitamin Connect, and it's a lot of fun. So I hope listeners will go become a member and distractionpodcast.com.
Yeah, and it's a great podcast. I started listening to it myself, and I love that it's short, and I love that it's packed full of great stuff. So I highly recommend the Distraction Podcast. Definitely check it out on iTunes or the website. So with that, I thought I'd have you on to talk about distraction when it comes to ADHD because, you are the author of Driven to Distraction, which came out over 20 years ago? Was it?
1994.
I don't remember.
1994.
Wow. So we're going almost 22 years.
Yeah.
And when you wrote that 20-something years ago, I'd say, distraction had to be a little bit different back then, that one of the major distractions today is technology and screens and all that. So, that's going to be a huge change from when you wrote the book back in 1994, is the advances in technology.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ratcheted way up. Who would have thought some 20 years later the absolute sandstorm of messages that we live in. Now, it's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not deploring it at all, but it can be tremendously confusing, distracting, frustrating, exasperating. These electronic devices, our iPhones, our laptops, have made us, if we're not careful, we sort of become addicted to email and texting and, constantly checking for messages. When the mail used to come once or twice a day, we'd rush to get the mail. Now it comes once or twice a second, and we're still rushing to get the mail. And what that ends up is you keep disengaging from what really matters in your pursuit of these little squirts of dopamine that you get from opening up a message. There's something very exciting about opening up a message. But if you're not careful, you just do it all the time, and you spend an inordinate amount of time doing what I call screen sucking. You're just glomphing onto your device and sort of mindlessly sending and receiving messages. And particularly susceptible are we who have ADD, because we love that stimulation. We love the novelty of the new message. We love the fun of it, the excitement of it, the instantaneousness of it. That's right up our alley. That's right in our wheelhouse. So we are particularly vulnerable to becoming, if not addicted, at least severely habituated, to the process of sending and receiving messages, surfing the net, doing all the cool stuff that when it gets out of hand really gets in the way of leading a productive, fulfilling, meaningful life. What happens really
is not just email anymore. It's
it's the whole world, and you begin to get a sort of superficialization of life, because it's all coming fast and furious, but none of it's very deep. So it's a mile wide and an inch deep, and that's not a good way to live.
No, it's not. So what do you suggest because we live in a technology world. I mean, everything, has technology now. How do you suggest to connect more and not let the technology rule your life?
Well, the solution is very straightforward. It's not easy, but it's very straightforward, and it's to learn moderation, to put yourself in charge of the technology so it's not in charge of you. And the best analogy I know of is food. You see, with addictions, the model that people recommend is abstinence. Well, when it comes to electronics, that's not possible. We have to use our electronics. So it's more like food. Food, you can't abstain from food. You need it to live. And similarly with electronics, you need it to function in today's world. But like food, you can overdo it, and it has serious consequences, as does food. So much as people struggle sometimes to learn moderation with food, so you need to work to learn how to moderate your use of electronics, so you get a healthy dose, but not become the equivalent of obese with electronics, overfed with electronics, and for some people it's a huge struggle. I mean, there are actually inpatient treatment centers now for excessive use of electronic devices. So it began as a joke, the crackberry. It's anything but a joke now. Marriages break up, relationships end. People get offended. People lose jobs, underperform, flunk out of school. I mean, it's if you're not careful, this can be as dangerous as food and obesity. It's a modern, unique problem, never before encountered in human history, that we as a global civilization are working to learn how to master. Because if we're not careful, it masters us. It rules us. Just as some people are ruled by their desire to eat, so some people are ruled by their desire to send and receive messages, surf the net, and meanwhile neglect what really matters, be it relationships or work.
And it's interesting. I've heard a few people lately talking about media diets that are, somewhat like a food diet that
it's a great thing to try.
Media plan. Yeah.
Yeah, try to have a screen-free weekend. At first, you'll get really annoyed. It's like you're going into a mini withdrawal. But I can guarantee you by the end of the weekend, you'll feel refreshed. You'll feel cleansed. You'll feel, gee, I should do this more often. And it's, just do the experiment for one weekend.
Yeah. Or just starting to have 10 minutes, 5 minutes a day where you turn your phone off or even to airplane mode. And it's weird because a lot of us just go through life dependent on the phone and not even thinking of it. It's an uncomfortable feeling at first to shut it off for 5 or 10 minutes. But, unless there's a major family crisis going on that you know about, most people can be okay with turning their phones off for a little bit during the day.
Yeah, and Tara, that's a good way to start, to start with 10 minutes and then go to 20 minutes and then an hour, and the next thing you do a morning, and you'll discover that you feel good when you put yourself in charge. You have more control. You feel less annoyed by these interruptions. You feel less the cravings of the addict. It's a very satisfying feeling to take back control that you've really inadvertently given away. You've inadvertently allowed these devices to gain access to your brain in a way that's not healthy.
No, it's not. But it's great because there are parts of technology which can be very helpful. I mean, just you and I on the podcast right now, I'm sure the majority of the listeners are listening through iTunes on their smartphone.
Oh, no, it's wonderful. No, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
This is just like food is wonderful, Food is wonderful. Food is maybe, if not the greatest, one of the greatest pleasures in life. But if you take it too far, then it can be lethal. So the same with the electronics. They've changed our world in a wonderful way. It's just that it can also be dangerous if you're not careful, if you don't take back control. But it's certainly we should celebrate what we've got. It's an incredible tool that we all use and all enjoy. Just like food, you just have to be careful with it. Just like food. But
I liked what you said about, we're in control of our technology, or it's time for us, I think, to get in control of our technology. And that's something I say a lot too, and I agree with that. We're the ones that are in control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So in relationship, well, at least I think it is, to the electronics and screens, multitasking can also be another form of distraction that's very challenging for people with ADD and ADHD.
Yeah, and the multitasking is another grand seduction because it's fun. Why do people do it? Because it's fun. It's fun to, be talking on the telephone and emailing and have a TV show on or streaming Bloomberg's stocks on the bottom of a screen, and you're switching your attention. What really people mean by multitasking, it is neurologically impossible to multitask. You can't pay simultaneous attention to two cognitively demanding tasks. So, for example, it would be impossible for me to pay full attention to you and at the same time be composing an email or reading an email. And when people try to do that, what they really are doing is they're switching their attention rapidly back and forth from one task to another. So I can pay attention to this conversation for a second and then to the email for a second, and I can get away with it unless you're asking me something very complicated or telling me something very complicated. Then I'll miss a certain detail, and I'll come across like I'm stupid. Or with the email, if the email is very convoluted, I'll miss something crucial in it, and I could, botch a deal or offend someone by missing the word "not," for example. Multitasking is a grand seduction. We all love to do it. I suppose the classic one that's gotten a lot of press is texting while you're driving. And, you think you can get away with it, and most of the time you probably do, but it's that one time when you take your eye off the road and you kill someone that ruins your life, or you kill yourself. It is, we think we can get away with it, and most of the time we can, but the stakes are very high when you're talking about driving or, engineering a business deal, or for that matter, a romantic conversation. If you're not paying full attention, you're giving up something critical. And now, if you're doing boring tasks, if you're talking to a telemarketer and unloading the dishwasher at the same time, it really doesn't matter because neither of those demands full attention. But if what you're doing really does require full attention, then you're much better off not multitasking.
It's very common for people with ADHD, or I'll take myself, for example, email is not a strength for me, writing email or writing in general. And in general, I'll leave out words like not So it sounds like multitasking makes that even worse. So those of us with ADHD probably makes sense to do less and less multitasking.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if we want to be clear in what we're saying and not have misunderstandings, just do one task at a time. And it's now it gets a little bit complicated because, for example, when I write, I always have music playing, and I'm actually part of I'm part of a company now called Focus at Will. It's this amazing musician created this incredible website where he's engineered music, classical music, jazz music without words, and the interesting parts have been taken out of it. So what you can do is you go to Focus at Will, you listen to this music while, in my case, writing, and the music engages that part of my mind that would otherwise be distracting me. And particularly with ADD, we always have these distractors going on in the back of our mind, and the music engages that part of my mind. So that's an example of multitasking that actually enhances concentration. Mm-hmm. By listening to this music without words, I'm able to focus better on my writing. And I recommend Focus at Will to all your listeners. It's an incredible tool. I've had students use it where they hadn't been able to write papers. Suddenly they can write papers, particularly for people with ADD. When you can engage the part of your mind that would otherwise be distracting you, you're able to pay better attention. So that's an example of adaptive multitasking, of useful multitasking. Mm-hmm. But
so
mind you, I'm not paying conscious attention. I'm not paying conscious attention to the music. It's subliminal.
Yeah. But the majority of things that we try to do, which are probably the tasks and usually things we may not enjoy doing, we just want to get them both out of the way or all of them out of the way, depending on how much we're trying to multitask. And as much as we think we love multitasking, I know all the research shows that it doesn't really work and it's more harmful than helpful.
Yep, most of the time that's the case.
Yeah. So we are actually surprisingly getting towards the end of today's show. And by quickly, is there anything about distraction and ADHD that you didn't share today that you'd like to share, Dr. Hallowell?
Well, it's endless amounts. It's something I think it's something that we all need to sort of address and deal with in our own way. And it's kind of a force of nature now. We live in the age of distraction. But if you're intentional about it, if you have a game plan, if you're aware of the dangers and seduction, then life is better than ever. You can ride the crest of this amazing wave and have instant access to, you can start a business from home. You can plan an entire vacation. You can do in a matter of minutes what used to take days, weeks, months. So absolutely just learn how to use it so it doesn't use you. And the force of distraction turned on its head becomes the force of connection, becomes the force of communication, becomes the deal making or friendship building or planning, and used properly, it's a tremendous tool, an incredible asset that really has blessed us. Just like with most innovations, there's some unintended, unpleasant consequences if you're not careful. But this is not like global warming where you have to wait for governmental policy to change. This is something that your own personal policy. You can take back control that you've given away, much as everyone does with food, to come back to my original analogy. Okay.
And could you give out your contact information once again?
Sure. My website is drhallowell.com, and just drhallowell.com. My email address, which I'm happy to hear from your listeners, is drhallowell@gmail.com. Again, Hallowell @gmail.com. And then the podcast, which I hope you'll subscribe to, is called simply Distraction. You can download it on iTunes or go to the website, which is distractionpodcast.com.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Hallowell, and thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen to ADHD Support Talk Radio.
And Tara, just let me thank you for the wonderful work you do. It's you're one of the angels in this world, and thank you so much.
That's great, thank you. Okay, and thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and thanks so much.